wish for me. You set me up so high, I have no worries. You did not hide your face, did not turn me away. Of you, Lord, I will sing and tell my story. You've got a love so pure, it pulls me in for sure. It's all consuming. Your gentle lovingness washes away my mess. It proves you truly love the real me. Behold the beauty of the Lord.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Recovery Unplugged Live. Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm getting over a cold. Just a cold.
Gotcha. I was sick last week, too, and we have Janet Kirchheimer here. Hey, Janet, how are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for
So
being
lovely
here.
to be here.
Amy's going to interview you in a minute.
Yep.
And we're going to see a trailer of one of the films that you directed. But before that, Amy, what is
produced.
new? Oh, produced.
Produced.
We'll talk about that.
That's
Cool.
our fault.
Regardless, it still looks like a cool concept and a cool film, so we're glad to have you on. Amy, how about you? Any updates in your land? Any new awards that you've won or been nominated for? Any project updates?
Yes, Recovery Unplugged with Sophia Luisa was nominated for Best Producer and was nominated for a special jury award at the U.S. Hollywood International Golden Film Awards. And their award looks like this because we got a couple of them for Letters to Daniel. Be nice to bring one home for our hard work on this show as it's developed over the years. So I'm just thrilled to be nominated for two different things for that. And actually, I didn't say this on here, but that same episode was a runner-up at Newsfest at AOF this past summer. We missed out on being nominated at the Crown Awards, but I'm not really too disappointed about that. That was kind of a long shot anyway, because there's a lot of higher budgeted movies. And I'm collaborating, and I wanted to give a shout out to Lena, who is the singer of Behold the Beauty of the Lord, which is usually the song that plays us in to our episodes these days. She was thrilled to have her song used. She said, just use my name. And we're also collaborating on a stage musical version of Letters to Daniel, which we're going to put on locally.
That is super cool. And if she has a link that she wants me to put on the YouTube recordings to attribute credit back to her for that, then just get it to me and we'll make sure that that is attached to every single one that we've used it for.
Okay, and so with that is all the news I have for now. But now I would like to introduce our guest, Janet Kertheimer.
Yeah, so go
the
ahead and introduce her, and then we're going to show her trailer.
Okay, she is the producer of After. And I feel like from what I've read about it and looked at the website, her blood, sweat, and tears and heart and soul went into this project. And it's very special. And I'll let her tell you about it when we get back from seeing the trailer.
All right, here's the trailer for After. We'll be back.
took the ground in the Edel. You see, all these details are nailed into my head.
How good it is to wander the broad, wide streets.
And declared that he felt sorry for God, who had so many problems with justice, and had become disillusioned and sad.
I wish you were here. That we can walk up to history and still forget it. Forget even the act of forgetting.
Dein goldenes Haar, Margarete. Dein aschenes Haar, Sulamit.
My father hangs upside down on a pipe. All of his change falls from his pockets.
And rain down dark and bitter tears on her, daughter of the Holocaust. I knew that she would one day do this.
Everywhere, the smell of pine.
Nothing is hopeless. Nothing.
If poetry is going to be as important a form of human speech as I think it is, then poetry must have in its sight the deepest human experiences, and some of them are historical catastrophes. And we need to remember the people who came before us. It's part of the task of poetry to try and bring the dead back to life.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, our special guest tonight is Janet Kirchheimer. She is not only a producer, she is a published author. Let's start with Brought Us Together, which was the American film market last week, and your documentary, After. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's about and what inspired you to take the steps to actually make it?
Yes, so thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's truly, truly an honor. And I'm excited to tell you about After. It's really, the film is called After, Bringing the Dead Back to Life. And it's where we follow poets as they perform and examine the role of art in responding to the Holocaust. So that is really what the film is about. There are about 12 poets in the film, from Geza Rohrig, who is the star of the Academy Award-winning film Son of Saul, Edward Hirsch, also Cornelius Eady, a Pulitzer Prize nominated poet, Alicia Ostreicher, I'm in it also, the daughter of survivors, a granddaughter of survivors. And it really truly is a labor of love. As you mentioned, I am a published poet. I do have a book out called How to Spot One of Us, which are poems about my family and the Holocaust and what it means to be the daughter of survivors. And I was at a conference and I met the man who is the director on the film, and we started talking, and we both obviously, he said, you know, I love poetry. I said, oh, great. I love poetry too. And here's my book. And so I gave him a copy of the book, and 2 weeks later we started talking, and he said, and I have an idea for a film, and off we went. And it truly has, like, everyone that's been in it has just wanted to be a part of it and to try to do something that's new and different, because, you know, there have been amazing films out there, amazing documentaries. And unfortunately, now you can't do that anymore, because most of the survivors who were in these documentaries have passed on. And so we are trying to do something unique. No documentary about the Holocaust has been done through poetry. And what we talk about is the aftermath of the Holocaust, and how it still reverberates to this day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the beautiful thing about documentaries are that every film is a passion project if you're an independent, but documentaries especially so. And and a lot of times when you do like your first documentary or your second, no matter what, they are inherently a part of you and what drives you. What is it that drove you to do this? Because it's a journey. It's a journey for a film, and you gotta right. It's like a marathon, not a sprint.
Correct.
What drove you and kept you going when the going got really tough?
Yeah, I think what really did it is the sense of poetry and how it's a way to get at what you should feel. It's really without question super, super important and necessary to have facts and academia and all sorts of history. But this is a way of getting at the Holocaust and what came after through poetry and writing and feeling. And I think that what kept me going was the knowledge of the poetry that's out there, because there has really been poetry in every single society since the beginning of man, right? The Bible, poetry, and every other society has poetry in there. And they say if poetry didn't exist in a society, someone would invent it, because we tell stories. That's what we do as people. We tell stories. And I think that what kept me going is to honor the dead and the living. That's really what kept me going, that this was something that was really important and a way to honor that and to keep the memory of the people alive. And that is one of the jobs of poetry, to try to bring the dead back to life and to explore, genocide, because somebody has to report on it. And there have been, unfortunately, so many genocides in this world, and they keep continuing, but I can only tell my story and the stories, that I know about the Holocaust.
Yeah, you talk about keeping the memory of the dead alive. They showed there was this YouTube video, and it was it's funny, but it's sad, because they showed this picture of a YouTuber, and this young lady knew who she was and in what context. And then they showed a picture of Anne Frank, and they had no idea who she was.
Right.
I was like, something's wrong with our educational system. I had to read the diary of Anne Frank when I was in high school. It was just, required reading, and I didn't mind. It was right. So I think it's like you say, the emotion that gets, a lot of times what documentaries will do is it'll make you think, but at the same time, that emotional part that it helps to imbue empathy, where maybe empathy and understanding wasn't before. And given how troubled our world is now, with those same issues, and as you say, it seems like they say after every genocide, never again, and then
and it's again and again
and again, and it's like, but at the same time, as long as you're speaking your truth, that's all you can do. And I think that's what is the amazing part of being able to, get this out. So, what made it, you mentioned that you are the daughter of survivors and the granddaughter of survivors. What can you, after is a good title, because it talks about the trauma that was endured, and then they have to process. what was it like for you as a daughter and a granddaughter, experiencing their, what they were going through, processing?
Right. And I think that it's a little bit hard for me because it's all that I know. And as I do think about it, these people were affected. We just had the 83rd anniversary of Kristallnacht, which, was named the Night of Crystal, and it does sound poetic, but it was anything but. And it was 2 days of rioting, and over, probably the numbers vary widely, but at least 100 people were killed, over 1,000 businesses and synagogues were destroyed, and about 30,000 men were sent to concentration camps. And my father was 16 years old, and he was arrested on Kristallnacht and sent to Dachau. And that stayed with him for his entire life. And to try to make sense of something like that, and his parents and older sister and younger brother were murdered in Auschwitz. And my mother, at 6 years old, was backed up by kids in her school in Germany. Both my parents were born in Germany, and the first graders threw rocks at her because she refused to say Heil Hitler. And so about 6-8 months later, her parents were able to get her out to an orphanage in Amsterdam. And there were 104 girls and only 4 survived. So these kinds of things stay with you all your life, I think. And they were burdened by it. There were times of happiness and joy, and my mother was able to get out with her parents. And I remember my grandfather died before I was born. And I think that it's just this weight that was always on everything, even during the happy times. And they were very good about telling me about what happened at an age appropriate. But there was always a sense of something else going on. And my way of dealing with the trauma, because there have been studies that talk about how children of survivors of genocide, that trauma is passed down through the genes. And so it's real. And I think for, any of your viewers who have dealt with any sort of trauma, that it's always there. And I think my way of dealing with it was poetry, because it allowed me to explore what was going on and what I was trying to say. And what happens in poetry and what happens in the film is it's really important what is said, but it's also important what is not said and what rises up. And that's something that documentary does especially well, and helps to make this film.
Yeah, as someone with bipolar disorder, not to compare it all to, what you were going through, but the trauma of that, like you say, it stays with you. And if you don't, right, and you have to process it. And the writing process is, it was like I was taking medicine, I was going to a therapist, but the minute they encouraged me to write, and as soon as I started writing about it, that's when, I called it the true healing began. And I found my voice and I found my power. And I think that's true of a lot of trauma. Kind of that's a great exercise, and not to compare it at all to, because I've never.
I know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I agree with you. Art is a great place for people to go to find relief, to find healing, to bridge that gap. So what is it you hope for this film? What is your highest hopes for this film and going forward?
Sure. We want, of course, for the film to be seen, for it to be out there, hopefully film festivals and, on streaming, and, every filmmaker's dream, but also that the film can be used in schools, in ways, in colleges, and there are genocide programs throughout the country in a number of colleges and universities, and that it can be of service. Because again, that's what documentaries do. It's about making meaning out of something.
Okay.
And that's our hope.
And I was going to say, as far as that college and university and library kind of thing goes, I remember I gave you a name, but I didn't spell it correctly. I have his email, so I can give it to you after the show. Any way I can help, because I think it's important for films like this to be seen and to be heard and to be experienced, whether it's at a movie theater or at university or in high school, because there were movies that and plays I saw that were very educational. They entertained, but at the same time that there's that message in a documentary that you don't necessarily get in narrative film all the time.
Correct. Right. It ends up being bigger than when you started. As we were filming, something would happen, these amazing moments, like, did you see what just happened? And and that's what happens in good film, and to make an impact on somebody's life. And I think the whole idea of the arts is just, if it changes you just in a tiniest little way, then art has done its job.
Yeah. I always believed art was meant to heal, it was meant to bridge the gap, and it was meant to disrupt the norm.
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny that it includes the whole spectrum. And I think the beautiful thing about a film like After, sorry, I don't know the whole time, but it looks like it's speaking. It speaks to that very fundamental truth that art can make a difference. And it's, I hope, your film is beautiful, and, I hope I get a chance to see it, because it seems like it's very personal, and just the trailer alone is very beautiful and very impactful. And everybody, and as you know, when you work on a film, everybody involved is a part of it. And like you said, it's like when those moments of magic happen, it's just such a, it's like, oh, it makes the journey worth it, as hard as it is. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to switch to some, actually, where can you get your book? That's what I'd like to know.
Oh, my book, yes. Unfortunately, it's out of print right now.
Okay.
So if you know a publisher, send them my way. So I'm working, I was working on getting it republished before the pandemic. So thank you, COVID. But I'm hoping in 2022 that it'll be republished.
Okay, so when you're looking at getting it published, what do you want to see? Do you want to see it on like a Big 4, Big 5 traditional New York publisher? Or are you looking at small presses as well, or independent publishing?
Really, anything poetry is very difficult to get published these days, as I'm sure you know. And yeah, so, somewhere where it finds a good home. That's really,
I might have a connection for you there too. So hang on after the show.
You got it. And if anyone does want to see some of the work, it is on my personal website, which is janetkworks.com. And some of the poems are up there. And I'm happy to read one if you.
Yes. Oh, I would love to. Yes.
Sure.
Read a poem. I would love our audience.
I will. So, as I said, my father was arrested on Kristallnacht. It was November 9th and 10th, 1938. And the night of November 9th, along with his family, they hid in the cellar of their home in a small village in southern Germany. And my father said he remembers his father closing all the shutters so the rocks would hit the shutters and not, break the glass or somebody could come into the house. And the next morning, he was ordered to report to town hall, where he was told he was being arrested. And he said, "What for? What did I do?" And the policeman said to him, "You can go home if you want. We'll arrest your father." They had a quota of 10 men that they needed to arrest. And he said, "I don't care how I fill it." They were then sent to a county jail and then to Dachau. So this poem is called Breaking Laws. And in it, I refer to a capo, and the capos were administrative prisoners who watched over the other prisoners. So this poem is called Breaking Laws. Kristallnacht, broken glass. Nazis arrest him, 16 years old. Dachau, November 1938. A striped cotton uniform. It's almost winter. He shares a bunk with a man in his 50s who freezes to death one night. The next morning, a capo tells him, "Take off the man's long underwear. Do it quickly before the SS come for the body. You will freeze at night too if you don't." It is the custom of some Jews not to wear clothes from a dead body. And to save one's life, the rabbis teach one must break custom. He washes the underwear that night, places it over a chair next to the wood stove to dry, sleeps on it, still damp, to make sure no one will steal it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there were a lot of broken laws there and what's not said. And, and so I think that's what poetry does that journalism and reportage can't do,
Right.
and this is a way of getting to those small moments of here's a 16-year-old boy. And when he was processed at Dachau, one of the capos said, "You're young to be here, aren't you?" And they asked him his occupation, and he was 16, so they put student. And so all of those things make poetry and then make after and documentary so resonant. We're still facing, as you talked about before, so much trouble in this world. And we have to remember the things that came before us. We have to remember those things.
Well, it makes the cliche, if you do not remember your history, you are doomed to repeat it. Very true.
Yes.
So I don't want to end on a speed round tonight because usually this is such an important topic. I just don't want to make light of it in any way. John, I know it's a little early, but do you have any questions, or is there anybody out there that have any questions?
I didn't see any questions that were out there. I don't have any, really. It's such a heartwarming tale. I really loved the conversation that you all had about art and its intention and how it can be used as a healing tool. It can be used as an advocacy tool, as a power tool, and people and individuals and groups using creativity to overcome different situations, and that really resonated with me. But just the stories and hearing about the film and hearing about your closeness to the topic, Janet, was really important for me, and I know for other people to hear. So I'll be interested in sending out the VOD of this and having people really listen to it, because I think, as you get farther and farther away from the events from the Holocaust, people tend to forget, and there's even conspiracy theories and we don't want to bring politics and all that stuff, but it's tough. It's tough sometimes. So I think taking on the challenge that you took on is very endearing. And so, what was it like for you in terms of, or what are some of the next steps, would you say, for the film, and what are some short or messages that you want to make sure people follow up on with you?
I'm just having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I heard what are the next steps for the film, and then it faded out.
Gotcha. What are the next steps for the film, and what are a couple of takeaways that you want people to make sure that they key in on for the film?
Sure. So, of course, we're hoping to get it out to film festivals and to get it out there and to try to do events around it and some kind of teaching and that sort of thing. And I think for the takeaways is that, you know, as we talked about in the beginning, trauma doesn't go away and it affects generations. It's not just affecting the person that it happened to. And, you know, so those effects continue on for years and years and years. And I think that we want people to be cognizant of that. We want people to know that art can help us, that it can help us try to make sense of a, you know, of a world that, you know, we're still all struggling in. And so I think those are the biggest things. And we also have, you know, people can go to our website, which is after.film, and can see information about the film there and can certainly be in touch. And so I think those are the biggest things.
When was it produced? What year?
This year.
This year.
I mean, it's yeah.
Okay.
We're getting towards the end of the film.
And okay, gotcha. So it's still in production.
Post-production.
It's in post-production right now. Okay, and then it's going to go and you guys are going to enter it into the film festival circuit.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you'll have to come back on and let us know.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Thank
in
you.
Like, 6 months or a year, and let us know how it went. And anything that
it
we
would
can
be
do
my
on
pleasure.
our end
It would be my
to help promote and make sure that we can get a good audience for
Thank you.
whatever festivals they go to or wherever the film goes.
Right.
Make sure you let us know.
I certainly will. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We'll leave with the trailer for after as well. But Amy, anything else?
Next week's guest is going to be Michael Casey. He produced and wrote The Hanged Man, which stars Al Pacino. He produces and writes the story, the series Purgatory, and there's a lot of other things he's done, but I'll get you a full budget. But I met him on Twitter, and he's a screenwriter, and he agreed to come on the show.
Gotcha. All right, everyone. So we will see you next Monday at 9:30 p.m. for another episode of Recovery Unplugged Live. Amy, thank you for coming on. I'm glad you muted yourself during that coughing fit that you just had, and I'm glad that I was here, so I was able to carry the conversation. So
yes,
I hear that. But Janet, Janet Kirchheimer, thank you for coming on and sharing your awesome story and your awesome film. And so we wish nothing but the best for you and your film after, and we'll make sure that we do as much as we can to further the momentum, because we totally believe in
Thank you so much.
Using your creativity to become better advocates on our end, and also to be able to share difficult stories. So thanks everyone for tuning in to Recovery Unplugged Live, and we'll see you next Monday.
Next week.
And here is the trailer for After.
I took the ground in the aid. You see, all these details are nailed into my head.
How good it is to wander the broad, wide streets.
And declared that he felt sorry for God, who had so many problems with justice, and had become disillusioned and sad.
I wish you were here. That we can walk up to history and still forget it. Forget even the act of forgetting.
dein goldenes Haar, Margarete, dein aschenes Haar, Sulamit.
My father hangs upside down on a pipe. All of his change falls from his pockets.
And rain down dark and bitter tears on her, daughter of the Holocaust. I knew that she would one day do this.
Everywhere, the smell of pine.
Nothing is hopeless. Nothing.
If poetry is going to be as important a form of human speech as I think it is, then poetry must have in its sight the deepest human experiences, and some of them are historical catastrophes. And we need to remember the people who came before us. It's part of the task of poetry to try and bring the dead back to life.
Upside down and shaking all around. There seemed no end inside. I thought I was losing. I remember what you say. You've got a place for me. Protection from the storm. It's you I'm choosing. You've got a love so pure. It pulls me in for sure.